So who am I talking with?
Well, my name's George Psiharis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Clio.
Really? How long have you been the Chief Operating Officer?
I've been the Chief Operating Officer for about a year and a half. I've been with the company
right.
for 9 years.
Yeah, 9 years. So year, 2 years maybe after its foundation, being founded. What attracted you to Clio?
You know, I actually went to school with one of Clio's co-founders, Ryan Govero.
You did go to school, right?
Yeah, we did. We did our business degrees together, post-grad. So we met, we were startup guys, we were hammers looking for a nail, and as we were looking at, in retrospect, what I think are a lot of really bad startup ideas, he got incidentally involved in a project that became the first version of Clio. And he kept in touch with me after we graduated and went our separate ways. And eventually got me curious enough about the business to join the team very early on.
What were you doing then right before Clio?
That's a great question. I was working for a company called Canadian Education Network. Okay. So this is a company that, long story short, specialized in the higher education space and in working with foreign markets to deliver Canadian-based curriculum programming overseas, and then to also bring students over into our major markets.
Where were you living then?
I was still in Vancouver.
You were?
Yep.
This whole time?
Born and raised, actually. Yep.
So you knew Ryan obviously from there, with Jack out in the hinterlands.
Yeah, over in Edmonton. So bitterly cold.
When you're talking about, a startup that was the precursor to Clio that you were in touch with Ryan on, what was that was different than Clio?
Yeah, I mean, so to put things into perspective, one of our industry projects from school was a bike storage facility that was like high end for like downtown business people in Vancouver, basically. So we actually went as far as talking to the city of Vancouver about that. It was codenamed the Change Room, actually, back in the day. Really original. We looked at a whole bunch of different stuff that, just for a variety of reasons, I'm really glad that we didn't pursue. And you mentioned sort of what got me curious enough about Clio. Even in 2009, when Ryan was talking to me about this, I was really surprised to take a look at the space and see that a technology transformation really hadn't happened.
Right.
It was almost a little too good to be true. I was like, that can't be right. There must be tech that is cloud-based and starting to consume the space, and there just wasn't. Right? It was one of those moments where you're like, wow, there's a real opportunity here, and a real opportunity to drive impact.
Right.
So yeah, that's where it all began for me, at least.
And then you started at what was your position when you first started?
Yeah, so when I first started, I didn't actually have like a rank. I was just this role that we called customer development.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Steve Blank, he writes some great, a foundational Silicon Valley style book called 4 Steps to Epiphany, in which he describes this customer development model and finding product market fit. And so my job was to kind of do all those things. We had no sales, we had no marketing, we're still figuring out the pricing of the products, we're still figuring out our kind of market entry, overall go-to-market strategy, and kind of just take it from the top.
And Jack and Ryan would go out and stand behind a card table and come, at bar associations, and come back and tell you what they heard. Yeah,
or as soon as I started, actually, like my first week with no training, I was on a flight to one of those with Ryan. So we went to, I'll never forget this, it was the ABA GP Solo Conference in Austin, Texas that year. And then immediately afterward, I was off to Wisconsin with Jack to Wisconsin Dells for the Solo Small Firm Conference they do there. So honestly, as soon as I started, I kind of subbed in for one of them. So instead of 2 of them, it'd be like Jack with me or Ryan with me getting it rolling.
That's the place that had the indoor water slides in Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's the one in the Dells, It's a heck of a place.
No, the reason I asked you that is that I, just as an outsider's perspective, and meeting Jack before they launched it, seeing he and Ryan and he had a tech show, with a white shirt and the black ties.
And now infamous photo,
and doing video with Ryan trying to get off the video and Jack like he was stuck on it. It felt very at home. I mean, the people felt at home. And then as I watched the company grow, you're finding people join the company, but then assume large roles of responsibility. I mean, you're a CEO in a company that just raised $250 million. In a relatively short period of time, you did that. How do the people come into Clio and start, like you just described it, hey, there's a lot of hats, we just had to get stuff done. Come in 1 week, next week I'm on an airplane. What's the culture permit for that, and how do people rise to that occasion?
Yeah, that's a great question. The one qualifier I will say is it's very different these days at Clio than it was when I joined, right? So we're much better at onboarding and helping people feel set up for success, I'll tell you that. But, the big parts are screening for the intangibles, right? There are many skills and abilities that we consider things that people can learn on the job, but things that we can't teach someone are to be an authentic values fit. So a lot of those values have scaled with us as we've grown over time, and they've been complemented with new values or new takes on how we're going to build our company and our culture. And I often describe those as curiosity and grit. I look at those as these two. Angela Duckworth writes a great book on grit and this thing that you find in really awesome people to work with who are highly successful. Those are the two pieces for me, right? You got to be curious enough to learn anything that you need to, and you've got to have a little bit of grit to just say, look, if things get frosty, that's okay, right? I can embrace the discomfort. And the thing I find is, like, if that's not okay for some people, that's totally acceptable. It's just we're not putting them in a place like Clio in a situation where they'll succeed. And
where it's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, because don't come back to the person that asked you to do something to ask them how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got our company values. Yeah. And, of late, we also describe our mantra as building an organization that's human and high performing. Like, our take at Clio is, we're here to win, right? Yeah. Like, we're here to go for it. We're here to close that amazing record round and challenge ourselves and stretch like we all have along the way. But we don't believe that in order to get there, we can't afford to be human and be an awesome, amazing workplace and culture. So, yeah, those are a few of the pieces that stand out.
Now, you've been an entrepreneur then your whole life, since college and whatnot. What made you that way? Did your folks, did they do things that you're going, wow, that's just the way I guess people live, or what is it?
That's a tough one to pinpoint. I'm sure they had their influences, of course, like they're a huge part of all of it. But for me, I have always had this impatience, for better or for worse.
Right.
See something, I want to move there, I can't wait, and I find that quality kind of pulls you toward entrepreneurship. Certainly, it's a faster pace than you might encounter anywhere else. It's also a lot more discomfort and uncertainty versus having a more curated path put in front of you. But that impatience is a big driver, and I didn't see a lot of, to be honest, growing up in Vancouver, we're an amazing lifestyle city, but not a city historically that has a huge number of explosive opportunities, right? It tends to be regional offices for some companies, a bit of a banking sector, but at the time, not a thriving technology ecosystem.
Imagine me, I'm in a small town in the Mississippi River.
Exactly, right?
Northwest of Wisconsin Dells, and I tell the family, hey, I think we need to load up the family of 5 and move to Seattle, and I don't know anybody there, because they have lots of cool stuff going on. And the internet, for the law, looks real.
You probably didn't seem like a compelling case at the time, right?
You can sell chocolate on the internet. You should be able to do something with the law on the internet. You guys released another report, and you did some cool stuff as far as, contacting lawyers, seeing how they respond. I mean, and that's your bailiwick as far as reporting on that and whatnot. Tell me a little bit about that report. What was the most kind of shocking things you saw? Yeah,
shocking is a good way to describe them. So we had a few different elements to the report this year that are a little bit new and built off of our learnings from previous years.
It's the Legal Trends report.
This is the Legal Trends report, yeah. Everybody can download, available online for free, so by all means check it out.
Kind of a roadmap to what the opportunities are.
Exactly. And certainly our take on how we're informing ourselves, but then also using our unique position to communicate insights back to our audience and to our ecosystem. So a couple of key takeaways. One, we were able to study firms that we have worked with for years, thousands of law firms, aggregate their information and pick out some of the qualities of what the top performers over a 5-year period have been. And this is a study inspired by a great book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. Big fan of that book. And we chose to be inspired by his work and say, what does that look like in legal? Instead of aspirationally pointing to what a rapid growth firm looks like, could we analyze our data trends and actually answer that question for real, right? With what we would call production data in the space, and that was super interesting. What we found was, over a 5-year period, firms that were able to just tweak their utilization rates from 28% to 33% overall, and putting their time toward billable work, saw on average 122% revenue growth in that period of time. And they kept their prices the same, essentially. They didn't raise their rates, they got a little bit more efficient and drove more revenue and more business per lawyer, and it just had an explosive impact on their firms. And of course, on the other side, firms that struggled to do that and saw declining utilization rates saw just as disproportionate impacts on their revenue going down. So that was a big one. Building off of that, we developed this thing we call the law firm maturity model, where there are 2 axes, firm performance and client experience. We kind of thought, okay, how can we benchmark the industry and our ability to serve our customers as well along these 2 axes? So the firm performance piece definitely fits in that KPI revenue category. The client experience piece is more about how are we doing in helping prospective clients shop for a law firm and then do business with a law firm. And so we did two parts to that. We surveyed a whole bunch of consumers on their experience, and then we put that to the test by actually reaching out, getting a research firm to reach out to 1,000 firms by email to test their response times and the quality of their responses. And
as potential customers.
As a potential customer,
clients,
client matched up to areas that they publish on their website that they provide legal advice for. So it wasn't like, out of their wheelhouse. It was very directly in their wheelhouse, and the results were surprising.
They were shocking. I saw it today. It was like, somebody's contacting you, you do workers' compensation. I got a matter I'd like to talk to you on.
Yeah.
I got a 50-50 chance you're going to respond.
Exactly.
And,
like 60% of responses inquiries didn't get a response at all.
Phone got voicemail. I mean, the email said, why don't you get a hold of me and schedule a time to talk? I mean,
exactly. The two key takeaways we found there were responsiveness is really, really important. Like, people will go with the first firm or lawyer that they really like, and their tendency is to say they will shop around, but to not actually do it if they're satisfied with the provider they find. And then the second piece is they're dying for information. They really want the responses they get to be timely, but also clear, easy to understand, and to kind of map out for them what their legal matter is going to be.
They're used to.
Yeah.
I mean, I go around and I tell your story. People say, what do you mean by that? I said, well, let me tell you a story about George told last year. And they have a child, they want to get a will.
Yeah.
They find a good law firm, go into the law firm, and George is asked by the receptionist for a check for the retainer.
Yeah.
And now he's got to realize,
I go to the bank to get checks.
I don't have checks. When was the last time
journey?
I had a check? And you said the entry point for working with that firm was to go to my bank.
Yes.
I mean, and think about it, to find the bank first off, like I don't even know where the branch might even be, and go in and ask for a check. Stand in line, get a check, come into it. And you guys are doing a really nice job in getting people to understand how people consume things today. I mean, I'm willing to pay more. I think Jack said it in his book. 86% of us are willing to pay more for the service just to give us that service. So when I went onto Amazon, and I go, okay, this is 20, this one's 13. Oh shit, I can't afford not to buy Amazon. How would I return it? What if there's a problem? And I push the button, and it's a damn Thursday night at 10 o'clock, and it says it's going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock at night.
Can't be beat, right?
It can't be beat. Done.
And you're not going back from that experience to going to the bank to get the check to start that whole process over.
From a law firm standpoint, what can they do to get us to that level of the Amazon-like experience? It doesn't have to be Amazon. But it is the mindset. I'm on my phone right now.
Yeah.
What happens? You're like, I mean, Jack was talking about today. I mean, you came out with a scheduling
exactly.
system. Boom, there's the times.
I think that's the key thing, I think be inspired by the Amazons of the world, and yet keep in mind that the changes we can make today that already drive meaningful impact are actually a lot smaller than we think.
And where do you see, wrap this up, but where do you see, Clio starts as a cloud-based practice management solution. I mean, even your mission changed over time, from that to, transforming the practice of law or the business of law for good. So now you're doing things like, okay, we need an app for scheduling.
Right.
We need to run $1 billion worth of charges through the system. Do you envision being this platform for the law?
We do. We're thrilled to be in position to earn the right to be that platform. We describe it as kind of the operating system for legal. And our take is we look out and we see this tremendous opportunity of an underserviced market, right? We estimate that the latent legal services market, the people who could be getting that will but won't because it's too much of a pain in the ass.
The lawyers are irrelevant.
Right? The business that's out there is on the order of $1.4 trillion, and our job is to help provide the tools, and this is a place where technology can help, to make it more accessible. And I think the other thing for me that's really important is it's not necessarily all about commoditization and price. I think there is certainly an access to justice gap angle that is about making services available on a pro bono basis for those who can't afford them. But we actually see this huge opportunity for people who want to pay for legal services, but the experience is what holds them back, or the inconvenience, the interruption, especially for stuff that isn't as sizable or kind of like doesn't have a hard time commitment to it. And so we'd like to be the operating system that people can use. And again, I mentioned it's kind of about firm performance and helping firms master that. But the big one in the future for us is this client experience piece. So what can we do to help law firms deliver buying journeys, buying experiences similar to what people are accustomed to in other verticals and other consuming experiences? Technology has a major role to play in that.
Is the 1.4 million, is that in a certain size law firm, or is that corporate consumer legal services.
We're looking at this the legal market overall, the whole gamut.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you're saying, because we look at ourselves as saying, okay, lawyers are irrelevant, this 70 or 85%, because lawyers don't go hang out on the internet where the people are. So how the hell would you expect anybody to find the lawyers or to trust the lawyers, because they're sitting there behind websites and shit.
Right.
And how do we get them to connect with people for good? Similar type of thing. So you guys see Clio as being that ecosystem, that platform.
We do.
The whole gamut of the consumption of legal services.
We see it being the platform, and what we expect to participate in is the thriving ecosystem around it, right? So we're up at around 200 app integration partners who all take the basis, the foundation that Clio provides, and deliver all of these different client-facing and productivity-facing experiences. So we're certainly not going to do it all, but I think we're
but you can be a platform to provide that infrastructure.
Exactly, and that's where we see our future. And before we wrap up, I just do want to take a rare opportunity to say that we don't often say enough how impactful you have been on our journey, and what an inspiration your work in getting lawyers to adopt technology. One of the very first ways in the blogging atmosphere for the first time is to vendors like us too, right? I think it's easy to overlook that that first journey into tech for their profession was a grind and a foundational building piece. And on behalf of all of us at Clio too, I do want to say you're one of the people we've looked up to the most over the years, but you made breakthroughs that at the very least paved the way for us to even have a chance to do what we do. So
we're sitting here on video today, and it was 2 weeks before Clio was kind of launched at ABF Tech Show that I told the team, I said, we got this lexconference.domain. Yeah. Could you put a site on that? And they go, well, what would be on the site? I said, well, I think I'm going to take a couple of you guys. We're going to go to Chicago. Do what? Well, Jake's got a video camera on a monopod. He's got a really good mic. He says the sound is really important. Who are we going to take the interviews of? I don't know. I'll just point out people who will think it's cool.
There you go.
So it was Colin, my son, who was still in college, and one of our project managers. They go, and people started calling. People started looking around. They're going, who are these people taking videos? And then the cameras didn't know what to do to stop them.
That's amazing.
And then I remember walking, that's Judge so-and-so, go interview him. Or that's Richard Susskind. I go, hello, Richard.
Definitely want to interview him,
caught the end of your talk there. I can remember walking into the exhibit hall, and I go, I know that guy. I met Jack in New York.
Right.
And so you might have been the first company that LexBlog ever interviewed.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Going back.
Wow.
So when you talk about that, I mean, we were learning at the same time. And it's been a hoot. And I think our function should be, how do we shine a light on the good things being done in the legal industry?
Exactly.
To inspire people, and then be there to empower them when they need help.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Take care.
Pleasure as always.
Yeah.
Thank you.